Now, if you personally hold onto shares of SCHD or the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, I can probably assume that this ETF's dividend growth long term is a big selling point for you and one of the main reasons that you hold onto shares of it, if I of course were to have to guess. And this is because for me personally, along with a lot of other SCHD holders that I've talked to over the years, are a huge fan of this ETF because of the fact that it's basically paid you more and more dividend income year after year. Now, over the years, I've gotten to a point to where I currently have around 707 shares of SCHD across all my portfolios combined, which is paying me north of $2,000 per year in dividend income, which is amazing. But because SCHD does offer almost 12% trailing 12-month dividend growth rate, a 10% dividend growth rate in the last 3 years, and in the last 10 years, almost 11% on average dividend growth, I felt like it was very important to build out a custom SCHD dividend growth dividend tracker and actually extrapolate out what my dividends are going to look like in the future if I say buy more shares, hold on to the shares that I have, and of course if the dividend growth rate changes over time. So that's exactly what I did, and I did want to tell you guys you can grab this SCHD dividend growth tracker for absolute free. For the first 100 people that grab it, it's the first link down below in my description. Now, before we go back over and head to the dividend growth tracker and I show you guys what the future outlook could look like for me, as well as a lot of you guys if you're holding on to shares of SCHD, let's go over some of the basics. I decided to use 11%, 10%, 9%, 8%, and 7% as far as the different dividend growth rate theories. But like you can see right here, over the last 10 years or so, SCHD did have a dividend growth rate on the 10-year of over 11%, which means that consistently year over year over the last 10 years, this ETF has paid investors not 5% more, not 6% more, but around 10 or 11% more year after year. Now, this is extremely important, especially if you're like myself and you're relatively young and trying to hold on to shares for a long time, because simply put, whatever you get paid today, if of course history was to repeat itself, you're going to get paid more next year and the year after that and the year after that. So like I said, it was really important for me personally to sort of extrapolate out and see what the future could actually look like for the current shares of SCHD I have right now. And I honestly also wanted to see what it would look like if I really bought a lot more shares, if I worked really hard and got to maybe 800 shares, 900 shares, etc., etc. Not only that, but I really wanted to look at different theories and wanted to see what happens exactly if SCHD's dividend growth rate drops to 7% or maybe to 8%, etc. Now, like I said, before we go through some different theories and I share with you guys what I'm working with, this exact tracker is down below in my description, the first link, and it is completely free for you to have, for you to use for the first 100 investors that grab it. But now to get to the fun part, like I said, as of right now, I currently have 707 shares of SCHD. Now, the current trailing 12-month dividend payout for SCHD, as a lot of us know, is $2.93. Now, before you guys say, well, what about SCHD's share split that's happening very soon? I'm going to update this tracker very soon. So that, of course, takes into consideration the share split, but basically all it's going to do is divide everything by 3 and multiply your amount of shares. Now, because like I said, the last trailing 12 months of SCHD's payout is $2.93, and of course, if we were to extrapolate out, let's say an 11% dividend growth, that means that next year, 2025, we're looking at $3.25 as far as every single share goes. That's how much you're going to get paid in dividends throughout the next year, if of course, we keep the 11% dividend growth rate steady. Now, the year after that, if that were the case, of course, these are going to compound on each other because now you're going 11% off the previous year. 11% more in 2026 would be around $3.61, $4.01 in 2027. And again, side note, these are all estimations, guys. This is not necessarily going to happen for sure. I'm just basing this off historical dividend growth rates. This also means by 2028, $4.44, and so on and so forth. You guys can see right here that by 2034, in theory, of course, we could be up to $8.32 per share per year. Now, what I wanted to do with this data is basically clean it up and give myself a real life look at what I'm going to be dealing with in the future. And again, I'm going to go through different scenarios here in a second, so definitely stay tuned. But because this is where we're at right now, I currently have 707 shares of SCHD, which again, over the last trailing 12 months has paid $2.93, which is a dividend income annual total of $2,071.51, or a dividend income monthly of $172.63. Now, another very, very important metric to me personally, maybe this is important to you, maybe not, but a really important metric that I wanted to see is how much intrinsically is my dividend amount going to increase every single month because of these future dividend hikes. The reason I really want to look into this is because any dividend stock or ETF that has a consistency of raising their dividends, let's say 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11%, that's going to give you a lot more income consistently, especially when you get to a few hundred shares, maybe a few thousand shares. It's definitely enough to make a dent. So I wanted to once again extrapolate out and see what we're working with. Now, like I said, for me personally, next year I'm expecting around $3.25 as far as SCHD's trailing 12-month dividends by the end of the year, which is going to give me around $2,300 more or less, $191 per month. And this is going to be a dividend amount increase per month of around $18.99. Now, it's so crazy, and this is the real snowball effect. This is the real power of compounding. As you go through the years, the numbers just get kind of more insane and more insane. I mean, a few years down the road, we're talking like $40 more every single month. And this is just based off the shares I currently have. This is not saying that I'm going to buy another single share, which, as you guys probably guessed it, I'm going to buy a whole bunch more SCHD in the up and coming weeks, months, and years. Now, to make things a little bit more grim, 7% dividend growth rate, this is a much lower extrapolation, but still, we'd be looking at around $3.14 in the next year, trailing 12 months. And even with that, we're still looking at around $12 of dividend amount increase per month because, of course, of this dividend increase. And still, if we were to go all the way out to 2034, we're still talking $5.76 with a 7% dividend growth rate. This is one of the main things a lot of SCHD naysayers always say, well, just because it's paid 10%, 11% more year after year doesn't mean it's going to do so in the future. And honestly, they're 100% right. It's not that it's set in stone that SCHD is going to continue to pay more dividends consistently like it has, but I have a good feeling that at least 7%, 8%, 9% is probably going to be something we're going to see in the next several years. But now I wanted to show you guys some more examples. Maybe this is more realistic for your guys' portfolio. If you currently have 100 shares of SCHD and we're basing things off of the 11% dividend growth rate, which as I showed you is the current dividend growth rate, you're going to be receiving around $2, $3, $4 more in dividend income per month within just a few years. And again, this is basically saying that you own 100 shares of SCHD and are not going to buy another single share. Now, this also means that as of right now, you're currently earning around $293 per year in dividends, but by 2029, you're going to be earning just shy of $500 per year in dividends, which again is not even talking about reinvesting those dividends back into more shares whatsoever. Now, what's real crazy is that I also wanted to plug in some numbers and just sort of dream a little bit, and that's exactly why I also want to make this for you guys to mess around with it. And I also will be building more of this type of stuff, so make sure to subscribe. But I also want to plug in 2,000 shares, because what if I worked extra hard, sold off some shares of something or another? Let's just dream for a second. And what if I got to 2,000 shares of SCHD? Now, this means that as of right now, I'd be at $5,860 per year in dividends, or on average around $480 per month. Now, this also means by the year after this, 2025, we're talking 6,500, 7,200, 8,000, almost 9,000, almost 10,000. And after just a few more years, 10 years or more or less down the road, our dividend income will not double, but basically triple. Now, this is my favorite part of this extrapolation. Every single month, if you were to own 2,000 shares of SCHD, you'd be giving yourself basically a $53 dividend amount increase raise month after month after month. The year after that, we're talking $59, $66. And again, these numbers are all just estimated, but you get an idea of how much of a raise you're basically earning from doing nothing but holding on to your hard-earned shares. Now, one thing's for certain, after building out that spreadsheet and plugging in some numbers, I personally am more motivated than ever to buy as many shares of not only SCHD, but just dividend growth names across the board, because even if they offer you a small yield starting out, that dividend growth rate, once it kicks in, really kicks in and can change everything. So now that I shared with you guys my Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF custom calculator and showed you guys what the future could look like potentially for our dividends, I lastly want to hear from you guys down below. How many shares of SCHD are you currently holding across all your portfolios? Like I said, I think I'm around 707. Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.